It all starts with our protagonist helplessly witnessing his older brothers being attacked by a terrifying spirit. He can do nothing to save them, and in the end, he only survives thanks to the sacrifice of his brothers, vowing to seek revenge in the future. Back in the present, we meet Hyoma Kunado, the young man who has become what they call a guardian eye. In short, he is a hunter tasked with sending spirits back to their own world when they intrude into ours. But there is something peculiar about how Hyoma carries out his work. Instead of being kind and compassionate like his grandfather Zohai, Hyoma has a more violent inclination, unleashing his anger on the spirits before sending them back. His grandfather advises him not to continue with such aggressive methods, explaining that not all spirits are evil. Some arrive by accident, and others choose to stay in peace. The role of guardians like Hyoma is to return them without causing unnecessary harm, using force only as a last resort. He even reveals that there is a person who coexists with spirits and treats them as family. Despite these wise pieces of advice, the boy does not seem willing to accept the truth. His desire for revenge continues to consume him, and he is determined to destroy everything in his path. In an attempt to open his eyes, his grandfather arranges for him to live with a girl who has a special connection with spirits for at least a year. Hyoma has no choice but to accept, as rejecting the offer would mean losing his guardian eye license and giving up the revenge he has fought so hard for. Thus, resigned, Hyoma sets off into the unknown, towards his new residence. On the other hand, we can see how the spirits, just like our young protagonist, send other spirits back to the underworld, as that was one of the conditions for them to be able to stay in the human world. Upon arriving at the residence, he was greeted by two spirits, and later the rest of the clan presented themselves in a somewhat threatening manner. Although his grandfather had spoken to him about them, the boy did not entirely trust that clan of spirits. From the beginning, he made it clear that he detested anything related to the paranormal and did not trust them at all. They didn't need to treat him well. He would only observe them from afar, considering them mere monsters. However, one of the spirits in the clan didn't like the boy's words. To welcome him, he decided to shut him up with punches. Of course, our young Hyoma would not tolerate that, and they both started a fight. The spirit had the ability to manifest swords with which he was quite skilled, but Hyoma had an even more powerful ability. He could create a void in space with rings, cutting everything in its path. Both seemed evenly matched on the battlefield, but according to the rest of the spirits, Hyoma wasn't fighting seriously, and they were right. He was holding back his attacks, or else he would have defeated the wielder of the swords, named Nagi. Unfortunately, just as the battle was getting interesting, the spirit's master was about to arrive. To stop the altercation, everyone unexpectedly attacked the boy, further confirming his mistrust toward them. Shortly afterward, the famous teacher who led the clan of specters appeared, and the young man had to present himself to her from the ground. After Hyoma fully recovered, we were able to get to know Botan, the young woman who shares her life with spirits, more deeply. She apologized to our friend for what had happened and extended an open invitation for him to stay in her home as long as he wished, as long as he maintained respect towards his fellow beings. On the other hand, Hyoma explained in more detail his role as a guardian. He told them that they were simple humans who derived power from the guardian deity of the East and the world of Tokoyo. However, in divulging a bit too much information, he made the mistake of warning Botan to be cautious of the specters that were in their service. This observation affected her, as she did not see them as servants but rather as a kind of family. She warned him that if he couldn't gain the trust of the spirits within 3 days, he would have to leave. This situation put Hyoma in a tight spot, as he remembered that failing this task would result in his grandfather banishing him from the clan. So now he was at a crossroads, trying to get along better with the creatures he despised. Fortunately, Nagi, the young swordsman, turned out not to be as bad as he seemed, and offered him the opportunity to earn his trust by inviting him to accompany him on one of his missions. Hyoma, with few options, finally accepted, although on the way, he asked Nagi why a spirit would work to eliminate others of its kind. Nagi's answer was simple. That was the only way to remain by Botan's side. He told him that he wouldn't understand unless he had something truly important to fight for. However, Hyoma did have something important, and that was nothing more than his desire for revenge. Once at the scene, they encountered the spirit that seemed to have the gift of controlling fabric. Both engaged in a confrontation to subdue it, and during the struggle, Hyoma showed the other guy that, although he didn't fully trust him, he could at least trust his skills. After defeating the spirit, the object that had been possessed returned to its normal state, revealing that apparently, spirits needed to take hold of an object to manifest in the human world. At that moment, Hyoma shared with Nagi the reason why he harbored so much hatred towards spirits. He explained that a Tsukomogami demon that had possessed an umbrella had taken the lives of his brothers some time ago, and since then, his only desire was to destroy it. This story managed to gain Nagi's approval, but he still needed to earn the acceptance of the rest of the spirits. Therefore, he continued to carry out missions by their side. However, during a routine inspection of a harmless spirit residing on the land, it panicked upon discovering that the Nagatsuki, Botan's clan, were responsible for the investigation. The spirit attacked one of them, but fortunately, Hyoma managed to save his other companion and quickly neutralize the female spirit. About to destroy her, she confessed to having heard rumors that they hunted those of their kind and feared becoming a victim of such hunting. At that moment, our protagonist remembered that not all specters were evil, leading him to halt his attempt to destroy the spirit. Thanks to this decision, everything turned out well, and Hyoma gained the approval of two other spirits by restraining his thirst for revenge to give someone in need a chance. Botan began to realize that perhaps Hyoma wasn't as bad as she thought, and that she could start getting along with the rest of the spirits. After this, we can observe that our protagonist practically every night had nightmares about the memory of his brothers in the cemetery, and apparently they had passed down to him the weapons they used. As the days passed, he had already managed to obtain the signatures of almost all the spirits of the clan, who were beginning to sympathize with him. The only one missing was Yu, the most serious member who seemed to hold the most grudge against the boy. On the other hand, a gang of spirits from the region, who seemingly hated the Botan clan because they hunted those of their own kind, accused them of being traitors and were planning to attack them. Meanwhile, Hyoma, alongside Yu, was working on a mission, although she didn't even allow the boy to interfere since our protagonist had arrived late to the location in the first place. To obtain her signature, the only way was to defeat her in a duel. So they began a confrontation, but this time our boy wanted to change his way of acting, focusing only on dodging the girl's attacks and trying to persuade her without resorting to violence, just as his grandfather had advised him. Unfortunately, he was applying this approach at a very bad time, as Yu was not holding back and giving him a beating. However, when they were facing off, the gang from earlier appeared on the scene, and unfortunately, Hyoma was caught by one of Yu's techniques. At that moment, this happened, which is why he wouldn't be able to help in the battle. Fortunately, before it started, the rest of the clan, having detected the presence of unknown spirits, appeared to provide support. But now, the good part is about to begin, because the gang decided to attack the weakest in the group, which in this case was our boy, who was trapped. The rest of the clan tried to stop them, but they realized that they didn't hesitate to attack a human. So the conclusion is that they had already dealt with others before, and their leader made the grave mistake of admitting it. These words awakened the beast, as upon hearing this, Hyoma used his own physical strength to break free from Yu's technique, something even the spirits had not been able to do. After doing so, he started a massacre against the specters that came after him. Now that he knew he was facing miserable beings, he had no reason to continue holding back, and easily tore apart the spirits that crossed his path in a quite unhinged manner. Once facing the leader of these villains, he said that he was just like them, a monster seeking blood. But before he could finish speaking, our boy annihilated him, not only sending him back to his world but completely exterminating him. Realizing this, the leader of the clan understood that Hyoma was precisely the person they needed in their family for what was to come, as that power was the main reason they had accepted to host him in their residence. Finally, after this confrontation, Hyoma secured the much-desired approval from Yu to be able to stay in the premises, which meant he could now stay with them for the entire year they had agreed upon from the beginning. On the other hand, one of the conditions that the leader of the Haori clan had imposed on Hyoma's grandfather to receive him was that he would have to marry Botan. And now that they had discovered that the boy was worthy of being with her, they would reveal all of this. Obviously, the girl did not agree with this, but the spirits that apparently possessed wedding items wanted to get someone powerful and reliable in case they were eliminated. Hyoma wasn't entirely on board with that either, but as always, in a rather cool manner, he told them that he would continue to observe them to make a decision. Of course, they didn't necessarily have to be married to protect her, as according to him, that was his job as the guardian eye. However, the boy's cold words left Botan feeling a bit disappointed. While on her way to university, she was attacked by a spirit that roamed the area and apparently harbored resentment towards all members of her clan. Fortunately, before the situation escalated, Hyoma, who had come to apologize for making her feel bad, appeared at just the right moment to save her life. Although before he could eliminate the specter, clan members showed up, quite desperate to protect their lady, causing even the spectral hunter guardian to receive one of their attacks while getting rid of the spirit. By the way, our boy apologized to Botan for his previous cold words, explaining that he didn't mean to speak to her that way, and she accepted his apology with a shy smile. After the altercation, the boy decided to reinforce the defense around Botan with powerful amulets. However, he was forced to withdraw them later, as they even affected members of his own clan due to their overwhelming power. Meanwhile, Hyoma's grandfather and the most prominent members of his clan were summoned by Kai, a powerful spirit who maintained a truce with the hunters in exchange for certain accommodations. The reason for the summons was that Kai wanted to understand why a guardian eye was linked to the residents of a spirit clan. It turned out that Botan held great value, and both spirit and hunter organizations frowned upon the proximity of a guardian eye to something so precious. However, the spirits explained that Hyoma was not seeking Botan's power, and in fact, he was unaware of what she harbored within her. Meanwhile, our protagonist was removing the talismans he had previously placed and found himself cornered by two high-level spirits who apparently were pursuing him for the same deductions as Kai. However, Hyoma proved to be quite skilled and experienced for his age, managing to trick them into giving them a quick hit, catching the spirits off guard. However, they turned out to be stronger than he had calculated, and when it seemed that he had defeated one and trapped the other, both had him on the ropes, as one of them was immune to his sealing technique. After neutralizing him, they began to torture him to extract information. Until then, the young man had thought that the spirits were simply seeking the weaknesses of the clan that hunted their kind, believing the dispute could be due to territorial conflict. However, he was completely surprised when they asked if his presence in that place was related to the search for Botan's power, understanding that this could trigger a war between factions. They inquired about the hunter's plans regarding the girl's power. Upon this revelation, Hyoma freed himself from his capture, as he had allowed himself to be caught to extract information from them. Now, he would be the one interrogating them about what they had previously asked him. Just before subduing them, Yu intervened to halt the conflict, advising that they let them go since they were some sort of detectives or bounty hunters with permits to stay in the human world. They lacked the right to take them along. Consequently, the individuals withdrew after having obtained the information they were seeking. In reality, our young entity hunter was completely unaware of the power that Botan harbored. Following these events, Hyoma came to the conclusion that something was amiss with the girl who shared her life with the spirits. Haori holding hands with Hyoma? Are they really on a date? You might be wondering what's going on here, but everything has an explanation, and it all goes back to half an hour ago. He would try to figure out what all this was about, what Botan was hiding, but this time he wanted to do things right. He ended up inviting the girl in question to a date to be alone and ask her what was going on. However, she panicked, thinking it was a romantic invitation, and ended up rejecting him. Fortunately, Haori, the clan leader, invited him to a date to explain what was really happening. However, this date turned out to be nothing more than a kind of pursuit of Botan. While they did this, Haori asked Hyoma to carefully observe the surroundings. In doing so, the boy discovered something terrifying. The gaze of hundreds of hidden spirits was fixed on her, something that, according to Haori, the girl had been dealing with all her life. She explained that this was because, as he well knew, spirits needed to possess an object to materialize in the world of humans. However, one of them had been able to possess a human, and to his surprise, that human was Botan. Fortunately, the spirit remained dormant within her, but its power was what attracted hundreds of spirits. They were all forbidden to approach her, even the hunters, because if that power fell into the hands of a faction, the balance would be lost. This was the reason why the other factions were furious that Hyoma approached them so closely. Moreover, that was the cause of the girl, apparently, always being alone, as her demonic aura repelled humans. Of course, until they were assigned to protect her. Upon learning this, Hyoma, unlike the rest of the humans who knew, was not terrified. Rather, he decided to protect Batan even more, knowing the danger she faced. Furthermore, this confirmed to him that the clan spirits were not evil. In fact, they represented for Batan what his brothers had once been for him, and he would not allow the girl to be left alone. It's been quite a while, and the city now appears covered in white, with the cold making its presence known. However, the most noteworthy aspect is the significant improvement in the relationship between Hyoma and the clan. Although, as is often the case, when things seem to be going well, something unexpected always arises. Aoji, the mercenary who had previously crossed paths with Hyoma, becomes an unexpected ally. After being hired by one of the Botan spirits, he reveals crucial information. 3 hunter clans have their sights set on Botan. They are terrified of the power she possesses and believe it's best to end her life before the spirit fully awakens. On the other hand, Hyoma receives a summons from one of the largest clans in Kyoto, the city to which he has moved. They request detailed reports of his hunting missions in the area. His grandfather warns him about Katamori, the leader of the clan, suggesting that he might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Despite the warnings, Hyoma has no choice but to meet with the leader. The meeting with Katamori is intriguing. Although Hyoma's grandfather had cautioned him, the leader appears friendly, even offering a demonstration of how his guardians, under his command, use seals to eliminate spirits. The situation becomes even more complex, plunging Hyoma into a scenario where alliances and appearances can be as deceptive as the spiritual world itself. As they conversed, the individual imposed 2 conditions for Hyoma to continue working in the area. The first was to provide detailed reports of all his missions, and the second, more impactful, involved eliminating Botan. According to him, the girl posed a danger, as losing control of her power could unleash a disaster in the human world. Despite the clan's previous attempts to get rid of her, the spirits of her clan always protected her. However, since Hyoma was living among them, they offered him the opportunity to accomplish the mission more easily. But Hyoma, without hesitation, firmly refused, defying the threats of the elder and warning him not to dare touch Botan or her family. Despite the staunch refusal, the elder was not willing to accept a no as an answer. Faced with the possibility of forcibly controlling Hyoma's body to fulfill the mission, they launched a powerful attack. Hyoma not only managed to block it, but also counterattacked, sending one of the elder's hunters flying and demonstrating that they had gravely underestimated his abilities. Those who thought he was just an apprentice were astonished to see his body marked by scars and discover abilities far beyond the ordinary. Despite the evidence, the elder continued to underestimate him, arguing that feats in his village did not compare to the level of power in that city. Determined to prove the power gap, he released several spirits controlled by talismans. What he did not know was that this made things even easier for Hyoma, who, by unleashing his true monstrous nature, used his weapon to easily get rid of the spiritual puppets. Hyoma's fighting style caught the attention of Tsubaki, the elder's daughter, who decided not to participate in the battle. His only interest was observing the amazing skills of Hyoma, who, after a long time, enjoyed the thrill of unbridled combat. On the other hand, the clan members discovered, thanks to the boy's grandfather, that he had become a hunter at the tender age of 12. But the most astonishing thing was not that. It was that afterward, he took care of the spirit of the tiles, which apparently was one of the most powerful in recent times. The boys were astonished at what someone thirsty for revenge could achieve. Meanwhile, our hero continued to dispose of the old man's puppets, who opted for a rather unfair tactic. He used an innocent spirit, the one Hyoma had met a short time ago, and that took him out of the game. Now, he had to send a spirit to another world that was only being used. This pushed him to the limit, focusing only on dodging attacks. The old man, on his part, was sure that this would happen. Discovering that the boy had spent time with spirits, he thought his heart had softened, and now he only hoped that the spirit would defeat him. The old man's idea was for him to let his guard down because he had to deal with someone he knew. But he didn't count on Hyoma having much experience in these matters when it came to making extreme decisions. He ended up mercilessly attacking the spirit. Although that was what they believed, in reality, he only used the attacks to remove the control seal placed on the woman. Of course, after doing it in just a couple of seconds, he got rid of the last hunter and cornered the old man, who had no choice but to surrender and allow Hyoma to patrol the area. Otherwise, I would take his life. By the way, it seems that Tsubaki was interested in the boy because she also met his brothers before she died, and even gave him her phone number to keep in touch. After this whole incident, Hyoma took it upon herself to bring the spirit from before to the Nagatsuki house. At first, Botan had strange thoughts about what Hyoma had really been doing, but after resolving the misunderstanding, Botan and Hyoma escorted the woman to their city. Upon his return, Hyoma revealed to the girl that he already knew the truth about the spirit that resides within her. Of course, she didn't have to worry about that. As long as he was a guardian eye, he would take care of protecting her. Also, to be honest, he revealed the story of his past, of how he sought revenge for the loss of his brothers. By the way, the spirits were increasingly convinced that Hyoma would be the perfect husband for young Botan. A group of spirits were wreaking havoc among the hunters of the ancient Taiju clan. Given this, the committee decided to send Yu and Hyoma as reinforcements, a duo who are like oil and water. As they headed to the location, Yu explained to Hyoma that the gang they would face was made up of spirits who had possessed torture objects and were too powerful. Apparently, several years ago, it took several organizations to stop them. This made Hyoma unable to hide her happiness. He was eager to devour spirits, as he was tired of holding back from fighting with all his might. Upon reaching the rendezvous point, they were greeted by Tsubaki, who would also join the mission. In addition to her, the two previous mercenaries were present to work on this mission, guiding them to the gang leader's lair. Although their role was merely to escort them there, they had no time to withdraw, as they were ambushed by the three powerful leaders of the gang, each controlling objects that granted them extraordinary abilities. Tsubaki faced the fire-wielding one, while Hyoma focused on the saw-wielding leader who was extremely powerful. He even managed to land a good hit on Yu without her being able to do anything to defend herself. Only Hyoma, thanks to his artifacts, was able to face him as an equal. Meanwhile, Tsubaki and the mercenaries faced off against their respective opponents without suffering any inconvenience. The leader of the Saws, realizing that he could not defeat Hyoma, fused with his object, gaining an even more powerful transformation. This caused Yu and Hyoma to join forces to defeat this new threat. In reality, Hyoma only participated in the final blow due to his injuries. He took the opportunity presented by Yu's attack to put an end to the first spirit once and for all. Returning with Hyoma and this group united for this mission, after dealing with the spirit, Tsubaki mentioned to him that she had met his brothers before. In fact, she used to admire them for the great combat skill they possessed, which is why she too was in pursuit of the specter that had possessed an umbrella. So she proposed him to join her clan, as there he could gather much more information to track down the whereabouts of this creature that had taken her brothers. Yu, who was listening to the conversation, thought it wasn't a good idea to accept since Tsubaki's clan was known for using hunters as mere tools. However, he believed that, thanks to the darkness within the boy, he would eventually accept. Fortunately, Hyoma ended up rejecting the offer as he wanted to continue in the spirit clan. Upon returning home, Yu asked the boy why he had rejected the offer, to which he replied that he was certain that if he took that path, he would be consumed by evil, so he would follow his own path to fulfill his revenge. The next day, Haori gathered the entire family to announce that they would celebrate with a sukiyaki dinner that night. Each member was given a preparation task, and Hyoma and Botan were given the mission to find the electric grill, whose location was a mystery. The expectations were obvious, as this quest would serve as an excuse for Botan and Hyoma to progress their relationship. Haori even gave Botan a love plan to charm Hyoma, by the way. The girl was very nervous about this. While the others continued with their tasks, Botan wondered if Hyoma was also feeling uncomfortable with the situation, or if he was at least thinking about it. At one point, Hyoma found the list that Haori had given to Botan on the ground. Upon reading it, the boy coldly commented that he didn't need to worry about that. Surprised, Botan could not settle for that reaction and wanted to see the boy's true expression. Despite his attempts to avoid it, they both stumbled, and the boy finally admitted to blushing. In the end, neither of them could hide their feelings anymore, although they did not formalize the relationship either. As night fell, the group enjoyed drinks and a delicious meal. Once alone, he told her that the Nagatsuki family reminds him of his brothers and told her that he has a great family. After that incident, several days passed, and our young protagonist received an invitation from a specialized hunting apparel store. Yes, because hunters typically use protective clothing to avoid mortal injuries, unlike Hyoma, who always fought in normal clothes and ended up battered. To prevent acquiring more scars, he decided to accept the invitation. Upon arriving at the location, he once again encountered Tsubaki, who secured his entry to that renowned store after noticing in their previous battles that Hyoma always fought without protection. By the way, Tsubaki finally met Botan, whom she considered her rival for Hyoma's love. But getting to the important part, once in the store, our young hero learned that the garments were created through the power of some spirits that manifested themselves in the form of fabric. To be able to use them, he first had to form a contract after earning their trust. The way Hyoma proved himself worthy of bearing the spirit was by demonstrating how he could withstand large-scale impacts through his daily physical training, something very different from the rest of the hunters who relied entirely on their garments for defense. Thanks to this, Hyoma gained the trust of the fabric, or more precisely, conveyed to the fabric that it was worthy of protecting him. As this unfolded, Tsubaki mentioned to Botan that she was very interested and that she should be very careful, as otherwise, she would snatch him away. Leaving that aside, while our ghost hunter was waiting for Botan outside the university while he finished some homework, he received an unexpected visitor, Kai, who wanted to know the abilities of the boy who lived with Botan's family and was eager to face him as a workout. To confront Zuhei's grandson, Itsuki, the girl who accompanied Kai, created a sort of barrier to prevent anyone from interrupting the confrontation. Although Hyoma immediately attempted to attack him, the power difference was overwhelming. This individual was, so far, the strongest spirit he had ever faced, thanks to the armor he possessed, which granted him various abilities. On this occasion, Hyoma would have to use all his skills to survive. Despite deploying all his power to the fullest, Kai managed to corner him, and moreover mocked him by asking if he believed he could defeat the specter that had been following him for years with such mediocre power. Obviously, this infuriated the lad. Now that he knew Kai had information about the specter that killed his brothers, he turned into a beast. Thanks to his skill, he managed to land a blow on one of the strongest spirits in the world. However, that wasn't enough, as Kai neutralized Hyoma once again. A few seconds later, the battle was interrupted by the clan spirits, who sensed the presence of this spirit in the vicinity. Although Kai wanted to confront them for fun, the clan spirits had captured his companion, and she told him that his time for amusement had come to an end by sealing Kai's power, thus bringing the battle to a close. The spirit wasn't there to defeat Hyoma, but simply to assess his abilities. Before leaving, he inquired why Hyoma wasn't using his true weapon, as the rings were not Hyoma's original weapon. Rather, he used them as a form of mourning for his brothers. Kai explained that this way, he could never confront the specter that killed his brothers. For that, he needed his true power. Additionally, Kai also remarked to the spirits that they were quite cruel in allowing Hyoma to protect Botan, even though the umbrella had taken his brothers when it tried to seize the power hidden within her. The girl listening from a distance was stunned by the revelation. However, thanks to those words, Hyoma decided to leave the clan for a few months to strengthen himself. He knew that at his current level, he wouldn't be able to fulfill his revenge and held on to the idea of not using his weapon. Months later, the young man was able to reunite with Botan and explain to her that he didn't leave the clan because he believed she was responsible for what happened to his brothers. He knew that the only culprit was the evil specter that had killed his family. So he decided to stay by her side, protecting her. However, Botan responded that it would be best for him to stay away, as every time humans tried to approach, they ended up losing their lives, like his aunt, the only person he had ever loved. Despite this, Hyoma insisted, assuring her that she had nothing to worry about. Under no circumstances was he going to stop taking care of her and staying by her side, at least not until he had completed his revenge. For now, he would continue to protect her. It has been 6 months since Hyoma arrived at the premises, and Botan notices a pipe that reminded her of the moment when they had to clean the room for Hyoma's move, so that he could live comfortably with them. While Botan was dusting, she found that pipe that belonged to her grandfather. In that moment, a strange hand appeared, and her screams alerted everyone in the house, who rushed immediately to rescue her. Just as this hand launched an attack against the girl, Haori appeared, who can manipulate fabrics, and managed to create a protective shield. However, the demon persisted, preparing for a new attack. At that moment, Nagi, with her arms transformed into swords, cut the demon in half. Although the Tsukomogami was defeated, Nagi also inadvertently destroyed her grandfather's pipe in the process. Despite her apologies, Nagi feared that Botan would be angry, but surprisingly she wasn't. Botan expressed her gratitude to everyone for protecting her, and they all admired the girl, proud of the strong woman she had become. In the present, she was ready to go to university, while Hyoma trained diligently with Tsubaki. Both of them had the mission to uncover the person responsible for the death of Hyoma's siblings. Meanwhile, the Nagatsuki family was devising a security plan to protect all humans during the Aoi Matsuri, one of Kyoto's most significant festivals that attracted a large crowd. As if that weren't enough, the three great Tsukumogamis of Kyoto, known as the Court Trio, would also be present. On the festival day, Botan was having a good time with her friend, when suddenly Hyoma appeared behind them, unintentionally startling them. He informed them that they had to take care of preparing dinner together that night. At that moment, Hyoma detected something suspicious in the area. While exploring the place, he discovered that a specter was hidden in one of the parade umbrellas. He informed his team, and just as he was about to intervene, the three great Tsukumogamis of Kyoto made their entrance. Fuki, the first of the trio, caused everyone present to lose consciousness with a kind of flute. The elderly Tsumabiki trapped the demon with a thin thread, and Suzumi, the third, launched an attack that easily sealed the demon. This left our protagonist stunned, and he approached to express his gratitude and introduce himself. When he revealed his name, the three fighters pounced on him, as they had heard about him and were eager to get to know him. Suddenly, Haori landed on top of our protagonist, knocking him down with a flying kick and reprimanding him for what happened with the Tsukumogami demon. As he looked up, he noticed the presence of the trio and understood that they had assisted Hyoma with the issue. Haori instructed the boy to report to Mr. Katamori, but the transmitter wasn't working since he was out of the radio range. As he approached the street from the building, he noticed a strange umbrella that brought back memories of when his siblings invited him to witness a battle against a Tsukumogami. In that fateful encounter, they were ambushed by the demon that nullified the techniques of the guardian eyes, and he watched helplessly as his siblings were ruthlessly defeated. Upon closer inspection of the umbrella on the sidewalk, a demon with a feminine figure revealed itself before him, watching him with a sinister gaze. On the second day of the festival, the trio celebrated their reunion with a small performance for the attending audience, including Hyoma, who was watching them. Kagami appeared and reminded Hyoma that he had promised to spend the day together. Together, they decided to take a stroll in the park, dine at an Italian restaurant, and try on clothes. Hyoma realized that he had never experienced such fun activities before. Until that moment, his life had been focused on training to combat the Tsukumogami. Kagami, determined to change that, took the initiative and wanted to show him how to have fun. After spending a day filled with fun, they returned to the venue. Suddenly, an evil Tsukumogami appeared, and Nagi was chasing it along with Yu. Hyoma, eager to help, joined them to seal the demon. Kagami watched them with confidence, knowing that Botan would be well protected in the future. Once the concert was over, the trio, excluding Fuki, who was detained by the police on the way, headed to the Nagasaki family estate. Tsumabiki and Suzumi were surprised to see Botan and began asking her questions about the music that young people listened to, as they were looking for a new style. Meanwhile, Hyoma left the estate, recalling what Nagi had told him about the instruments being noisy and only talking about music, something that our protagonist found boring. On his way, he encountered some friends of Botan who forcefully took him to ask him questions. Fortunately, the young woman who saved him from the curious questions of the girls appeared soon after. The Tsukumogami of Kyoto, alongside the leaders of the Nagasaki family, addressed the main issue and expressed their discontent with the actions. They accused them of violating the law they had imposed, as they questioned the motive behind insisting that these young people get married. They suspected that the true purpose was to trap the visitor residing within Botan. They recalled how in the past, she lost control after her aunt's death, and since the girl was on the edge between good and evil, they believed they were using Hyoma to help Botan find true happiness as a human and seal the demon within her. Given that Botan's family consisted of bridal items, they felt it was their duty to carry out the marriage. The old woman's sixth sense indicated that Hyoma met all the requirements to be a good husband for Botan, but it warned that violating the rule would only bring chaos. Despite the warnings, Haori asserted that, if necessary, they would fight to the end to carry out the plan. Suddenly, the Tsukomogami of Kyoto began playing music, leaving the leaders of the Nagasaki family bewildered, fearing it was the prelude to an attack. However, the true intention of the Tsukomogami was to confirm that their suspicions were correct. The old woman assured that they would not oppose, as long as no one interfered with the trio, revealing that the main reason for the meeting was to seek their help regarding a Tsukomogami that had appeared in the city. It was evident that they were referring to the demon that Hyoma had seen earlier. In the following days, we see Botan and her friends at the university, all of them members of a university club. They asked Botan to invite Hyoma to help them with a task that required the strength of a man, so the girl called the guy, and he immediately agreed. Upon arriving at the university, Hyoma was arrested by the security guards, who thought he was a criminal. After clearing up the misunderstanding with Botan and learning about what had happened, he was welcomed by Botan's friends. While Botan headed to class, the girls served him tea and started asking him questions about his relationship with Botan, making Hyoma feel uncomfortable and prompting him to flee the place. This action angered Botan, and on the way, her friends tried to explain that they just wanted to get to know the guy and were concerned about his happiness. Suddenly, Botan felt a strange sensation and sensed the presence of the umbrella demon. The girls were unaware of what was happening. Attempting to escape, they became trapped within the barrier created by the demon, transporting them to another dimension. At that moment, Kai warned Itsuki that he had sensed a familiar energy, the same one Hyoma had also perceived. The demon tried to peer into Botan's inner self to free its master. Natsuki, seeking an exit from the dark barrier, appeared and attacked the demon without hesitation. Later, Botan's friends were captured with the intention of harming them to awaken the demon within. Fortunately, Hyoma arrived in time to protect his girl, as he had promised. With a powerful attack, he managed to inflict significant damage on the demon. As the demon regenerated from the attack, it asked Hyoma how he would manage to defend the three women. At that moment, Fuki, the young wielder of the powerful flute, appeared and declared that he would protect the girls. He assured Hyoma not to worry about them. His sole focus should be on battling the demon. With a determined expression, the demon showed excitement about the upcoming fight, eager to avenge its siblings. After this, he instructed Botan to step aside. Although he was aware that the specter posed a threat, he still harbored doubts about whether this was the demon that had killed his brothers, as it bore no resemblance to the specter he remembered from his childhood. He needed to calm down and strategize his next moves for the upcoming fight. Subsequently, the enemy summoned their weapon and absorbed the barrier. This led Hyoma to believe that the specter was attempting to escape, and he threatened to defeat it to protect humans. In an instant, she disappeared and reappeared behind him. When he tried to attack her, the enemy dodged his blow and observed him from a distance with contempt, speaking about his older brothers. This provocation enraged Hyoma, who used numerous talismans and combined artifacts inherited from his brothers to forge a new weapon. However, his attack proved ineffective as the enemy easily dodged his moves. Then, he headed towards Botan and launched an attack to show the young man that he couldn't protect her as he had promised. Just as it seemed like it was the end for Botan, her family appeared to rescue her alongside the rest of the team from the Tsukomogami of Kyoto. The enemy observed them and began to attack as they closed in on the threat. Nagi wielded his sword with all his might, successfully impaling the enemy. Without pausing in their attacks, the group surrounded it, overwhelming the adversary. Suzuri delivered the final blow, crushing it to the ground. Meanwhile, Hyoma was impressed by the power of the Nagatsuki family as he witnessed them protecting Botan. However, the enemy surprisingly vanished, submerging into the earth. Kagami, using his mirror ability, located the enemy just as it attempted to seize Botan. Haori cut the demon's hand into two pieces, and Hyoma took the opportunity to launch a kick that sent it flying. The Tsukomogami of Kyoto and the Nagatsuki family joined the battle in an attempt to seal the specter. At the last moment, the enemy bid farewell to its master and smiled, despite being defeated. In the watchful gaze of everyone, the elderly Sumabiki announced that she would keep the sealed object in the storage of the guardian eyes. She promised that later on, they could inquire about the deaths of Hyoma's brothers. In the meantime, all rules would be followed. and the old woman instructed the group to take a break for the rest of the day. Hyoma was surprised by how easily the specter he had been searching for was defeated. Afterwards, Haori thanked the young man for protecting Botan, but he claimed that she was mistaken. In reality, it was they who protected her. He was only concerned with defeating the enemy. Sadness reflected on his face. Upon hearing this, Botan suddenly felt something in her body was amiss, and her eyes began to glow. Haori ordered everyone to quickly return to the Nagatsuki mansion. They ran back to the mansion, and upon arriving home, were met with the surprise that it had all been a trap. The mansion was in ruins, though their true target wasn't the mansion itself, but the protective pillar of the place, Elder Kushige. Given that there were likely stronger enemies, and that their main target was Botan, they understood that the best place to protect her was Tsubaki's house. Later, at the Katamori mansion, they discovered that Kushige was sealed in his own container. Then, a girl explained that there were 2 ways to seal Tsukomogami. She revealed that Kushige had sealed himself in the container due to an imminent threat of destruction. Furthermore, she mentioned his intention to repair the container, though she wasn't sure if he would return alive. Meanwhile, Botan was unconscious, and her family was worried about her condition. After this, Taiju mentioned that they would have many problems now without Kushige, as he was responsible for feeding the barrier to protect the mansion, and also preventing the demon inside Botan from manifesting. Now the best course of action would be to keep her confined, as her power would be uncontrollable. Tsubaki finally arrived with the news that Botan had awakened, and everyone eagerly ran to the room to see her. At that moment, the girl learned about what had happened with Kushige. On the other hand, Tsubaki pulled Hyoma aside to inquire about the specter they had been searching for so diligently. Hyoma confessed that he wasn't certain if it was the same Tsukomogami as before. Tsubaki gave Hyoma the impression that she knew more about it, and she revealed that she had uncovered some information through her own investigations. Moreover, she requested to exchange information about the Tsukomogami, as he had witnessed what had transpired at that moment. In seconds, Tsubaki's brothers appeared to scold the lad, as they learned that he hadn't applied in the battle against the specter everything they had taught him during the training sessions. After these events, our protagonist finally had a moment alone with Botan. She spoke to him about Kushige, expressing the feeling that he would soon awaken to take care of her again, as he had always done. She expressed hope that he could see her dressed as a bride, as that had been his wish since he took care of her when she was very young. At that moment, Botan confessed that she was waiting for him because she was grateful for him, so he kept his promise, protect her. Thanks for him, she and her friends was safe. Her words makes Hyoma very happy, and that motivated him to protect her even since previously he felt that he made a big mistake by protecting her. In the evening, while speaking on the phone with his grandfather and sharing the situation of what had happened, he advised him that it was time to use his own powers. Until then, Hyoma had used the powers inherited from his brothers, but now, as he was not seeking revenge and his sole objective was to protect someone, it was the right time to seek and develop his own power. The next day, Tsubaki came to pick up Hyoma, and he asked to use his family's dojo to try to master his power. Once at the location, as he prepared for the training, he recalled all the instructions his brothers had taught him to be able to master that power. In his first attempt, under the watchful gaze of the present ladies, he couldn't achieve it. Having used his brother's fragments for such a long time, he had lost the connection with his own. After the training, Taiju informed Botan and Hyoma that they should stay at the center, as it would be very dangerous for the girl to go to the university without Kushige's protection. He also mentioned to Haori about a mission for the Nagatsuki family. The Yakimata clan, one of the 3 major organizations, wanted to meet them in person to discuss whether Botan would continue under their protection. Haori gathered the entire family to brief them on the situation, since they couldn't decline the invitation. Therefore, they would have to figure out how to protect Botan. Suddenly, the court's musical trio appeared and offered to help. The only condition imposed by the Nagatsuki family was that this trio would have to protect her with their lives until all of this was resolved. The next morning, Botan reflected on the words of the Tsukomogami and felt terrified by the demonic presence within her body. She recalled the moment when she asked Taiju about the truth. The reason for the Umbrella Specter's actions was still unclear, but it all began when she was kidnapped by her relatives to evade the Tsukomogami that protected her. After that, her parents died in the accident, and Botan declared not remembering what happened next. Taiju explained to her during that amnesic period that she was not human and had surrendered control of her body to the inner demon. After they came to her rescue, Taiju mentioned witnessing a curious light that day because the Tsukomogami in her service saw a bright light emanating from Botan. Everyone bowed to her, as if there had been a change of leadership within Botan. Tsubaki asked if that light was the reason why the paper umbrella activated. Taiju explained that they believed the light attracted all the Tsukomogami that had remained hidden, as if it were a beacon. However, he cannot assert with certainty that Botan is the cause of the problem. Botan was very worried in her room, but remembering Hyoma's promise brought her a little more relief. On the other hand, Hyoma was exercising, and as he contemplated how to keep Botan safe without the presence of the Nagatsuki family, suddenly, upon arriving at the mansion, he felt that something was watching him. Without a word, he was attacked with a sword by Nagi, but he managed to defend himself thanks to the Katamori style, the defense of the cloth. In Nagi's second attempt, our protagonist used a smoke curtain to distract him. When Nagi was about to attack Hyoma, he responded with his sword, asking if that was how he thought he could defend Botan. Upon hearing those words, Hyoma, with his new power, cleaved Nagi's sword in two. It turned out that Nagi was trying to verify if Hyoma had managed to control his powers. After this confrontation, Hyoma promised Nagi to protect Botan until the end. At night, the Nagatsuki family bid farewell to Botan as they headed to a meeting with the Yakimata family in Tokyo. Meanwhile, at Taiju's offices, some members considered Botan a dangerous being and were willing to take action if necessary to seal her and protect Kyoto. Taiju responded that, for the moment, they were not going to take any measures. Furthermore, everyone was afraid of Botan's presence, although she seemed unaffected, offering to help with whatever was necessary while she lived there. After this, we see the Nagatsuki family a bit nervous about the meeting, except for Kagami, who was excited about the trip. Haori tries to reassure them, as they still don't know how they will be received at the meeting. Suddenly, a specter violently lunges at the vehicle. At the office, Botan consistently receives visitors due to her hard work. She sorts out favors, accepts merchandise for sale, and as a token of appreciation, her clients give her food. As Hyoma and Sumabiki witness this scene, they discuss the next operation. Subsequently, Hyoma invites Botan to spend time at the dojo. At the top of a building, both Uchiki and Aogi spy on the Shota team to observe their incredible techniques against the city's Tsukomogami. However, it won't be easy, as their numbers are not few. Resuming the journey to the meeting, Haori is traveling by car when the mysterious man with the umbrella unexpectedly attacks the Nagatsuki family's vehicle, causing significant damage. Using a powerful barrier, that specter completely made the car vanish, although everyone managed to escape in time. To further complicate matters, 3 more specters appeared to join the battle. They succeeded in ensnaring Botan's family in a trap, leaving them helpless and discovering that on the other side, more members of these specters have the intention of seizing Botan. Meanwhile, at the dojo, Hyoma and Botan await updates about their allies' journey and talk about how crucial the team is for both of them. Matsu informs Taiju Katamori that the Tsukomogami aren't putting up much resistance, which seems rather odd. After considering it for a moment, it occurs to them that these Tsukomogami might not have been sent to attack, but to set a trap and distract them. Both the Shota team and Taiju encounter formidable opponents. The protagonists discover that the Bureau is collaborating with the Paper Umbrellas, and Hyoma and Botan are attacked by one of its members. The enemies propose to each character to hand over Botan without the need to fight, leaving them pensive. While the Shota team receives additional help, Taiju decides to protect Botan, despite all the troubles she brought into their lives. Collectively, they all choose to risk their lives and protect Botan. Refusing to hand Botan over to the villains wasn't a response Tsuzumi could easily accept. However, Taiju has something in his favor. Tsuzumi and the others don't know Botan's exact location. Faced with an imminent defeat, Taiju has an ace up his sleeve, an impenetrable protective force. The team discovers that the previously defeated Tsukomogami are now puppets controlled by Fuki through a flute. The fight is sure to be tough for both sides. Both Botan and Hyoma remain in trouble, as they are now under the powerful grip of Sumabiki, who uses all their potential to defeat both. Anticipating the annoying power-up, Hyoma asks Botan to cover her ears to withstand the noise emitted by Sumabiki. After a distraction, Hyoma is injured, and hurriedly tries to escape that place with his companion. Although Hyoma covered Botan, it didn't prevent them from having to counter Tsumabiki and company's constant attacks. Even though it seems like an unfair fight, Hyoma manages to make a giant rock fall on Shigure. Although our protagonists try to escape, Tsumabiki does the impossible to restrain them. Even the unexpected occurs. Shigure destroys the massive rock, revealing her true power. Despite Hyoma suffering severe injuries, he still refuses to hand over Botan. Tsumabiki attacks Hyoma again with a different power that could potentially kill him. Botan briefly considers handing herself over so that her companion may live, but suddenly remembers the promise Hyoma made to her. When it seems all is lost, and Shigure attempts to kill Hyoma, he defends himself and cuts off her hand. At that crucial moment where the victory or defeat of both sides is defined, a key character appears in the scene: Tsubaki Katamori. The battle between the Shota team and the enemies has commenced, and they do their best to eliminate the puppets. Despite their efforts, Fuki revives the injured puppets, regenerating their missing parts. The team faces a significant challenge because to fully defeat the puppets, they must first defeat Fuki. If they don't do so quickly, the sound emitted by the flute could hypnotize them. Fortunately, the team, much like Hyoma, receives help from a special squad. Meanwhile, Taiju Katamori does everything possible to defend himself from the powerful Tsuzumi, thanks to his protective talismans. Tsuzumi continued to strike the elder but suddenly realized that the room was just an illusion. Now Tsuzumi must dodge all the traps set by Taiju, who has disappeared. A giant monster now traps Tsuzumi, and a victorious Taiju is found outside the building. One powerful enemy down, Tsubaki Katamori arrives to defeat Hyoma and Botan's enemies. She begins analyzing Shigure and her true origin. While Tsubaki suggests to Hyoma to take a defensive stance, she launches an offensive attack directly at Tsumabiki. Even Shigure tries to attack Botan, but Tsumabiki's power extends and prevents this incident. She is intoxicated by power and wants to claim the prize of defeating these two opponents, using multiple weapons and powers. Despite her critical attacks, will this be enough to defeat Shigure and Tsumabiki? While wounded, Tsumabiki recalls that during the war between the Kyoto Sonomi and the Sogenbi, Tsubaki Katamori defeated her enemies while laughing with excitement. This is why Tsumabiki avoids a confrontation with this powerful opponent and decides to fight Hyoma instead. She notices that he is in shock since they are now enemies. She explains to him that he needs to uncover what Botan carries inside her because she is the key to open the door that separates the living from the dead. She explains that the ambition of the Tsukomogami is to be heard by humans. Of course, Hyoma wants to avoid this crazy mission, so he decides to fight against Tsumabiki. Meanwhile, Tsuzumi manages to escape from where Taiju trapped him and battles against the snake spell summoned by the Elder. Despite exploding this snake, the spell remains active, attacking Tsuzumi again. Back to the protagonists, Hyoma tries to defend himself with his weapon against Tsumabiki, and Tsubaki continues to fight against Shigure with a significant advantage. But suddenly, a voice stops the battle. Without Hyoma and Botan expecting it, the whole gang gathers, leaving the others in shock. After Fuki begins a new melody, she summons new characters, who are bearers of umbrellas. Before the fight begins, Hyoma warns Botan to flee the scene to save herself. Tsubaki senses Hyoma's determination to defend Botan against these new enemies, and feels excitement at having such dangerous rivals to defeat. As the battle commences, they have to dodge enemy attacks. Kogarashi is the first to attack, unleashing strange powers that emerge from the ground. Other enemies like Suzumi and Fubuki join forces to confront Hyoma and Tsubaki. Both are struck but continue forward regardless of the damage they receive. Meanwhile, from a distance, Tenjitsu analyzes the battle, his eyes fixed on Botan. Botan wants to try to run and escape as Hyoma ordered, but she realizes she can't because she's under Fuki's powers. Worse still, Shigure appears behind her, bringing back memories. A memory that traumatized her, as during a car trip, she and her protector were attacked by several Tsukomogami, causing an accident. Seeing this pattern repeat and potentially losing those who protected her again, the true power of Botan slowly emerges. Is taken aback by the aftermath of the battle against Fuki's puppets. She asks Matsu where Fuki went, and he responds that Fuki suddenly escaped. They both notice that the Tsukomogami who aided them previously in the fight are behaving strangely. Now the enemies kneel as Botan's true power gradually manifests, leaving her looking possessed. Her face has changed, and she's surrounded by a dark aura. Botan's godlike power prevents her enemies from moving. She approaches Tsuzumi and demands that he stands up. Upon noticing Tsuzumi's injury, she decides to eliminate him, shocking everyone. The enemies, including Tsumabiki, are taken aback by the individuality of this godlike entity, someone they cannot control. Hyoma demands this god to return Botan. Something within her shifts, weakening her power and aura. She, or rather the god residing within her, tries to resist, but Hyoma's words and memories are stronger. Hyoma touches Botan's shoulder. He convinces her to return to reality because there are people waiting and caring for her. Hyoma embraces her, and slowly sheds her godlike persona. While yelling at the enemies, a power is unleashed from the box that was under surveillance. Thanks to the protagonist's efforts, Botan returns to normal, and all enemies rush towards Hyoma, who obstructs the villain's desires. The team emerges from Tenjitsu's umbrella, who had trapped them. Bad luck for the villains who were about to harm Hyoma. A smile returns to Botan's face upon seeing her companions rescue them. Nagi and the others anticipate the enemy's attacks, dodging them, to hold the protagonists in their arms. While the other characters exchange pleasantries, Haori orders Hyoma to rest, as he is in critical condition. Nagi acknowledges him as a true man for fulfilling his promise. The confrontation is imminent. Tenjitsu makes his appearance in front of our heroes and leaves them in shock after saying the following. It seems Hyoma's older brother didn't die as he thought, and now he's become the strongest villain. Did this demon possess his older brother's body? Who is he really? Although Hyoma is confused, he remains determined to protect Botan. Tsumabiki attacks again. Haori threatens her, demanding that after defeating her, she explains her betrayal to the team. Despite this, Tsumabiki is determined to fight. Both sides begin to argue, and it's Nagi who loses patience and initiates this bloody battle. Later, Tsumabiki and Fuki reveal their final forms. Tsumabiki announces his special attack, but is briefly halted by Haori. Fuki also attempts to launch an attack, but it's swiftly deflected by a mirror, a power of Kagami. Nagi cleverly leaps and lands a lethal blow on Tsumabiki, leaving him in agony. However, he manages to recompose himself, fueled by rage. At one point, Fuki shoots one of his powers at Tsuzuri, temporarily incapacitating him. Tsumabiki, facing potential defeat, unleashes another new power, which even stuns their own allies. This immense power exerts great pressure on the heroes, giving Fuki the advantage to deliver the final blow. Despite the overwhelming despair, Fuki's strike does not harm the allies, thanks to Kushige's intervention in this fight. Kushige easily strips Tsumabiki of their powers, thus freeing the heroes from another troublesome trap. Haori confronts her enemies with great determination alongside her team's power, vowing to put up a tough fight. Both Tsumabiki and Fuki are exhilarated by the battle, and both sides clash again. This time, both sides utilize their abilities to the fullest, but the allies coordinate their forces to deliver a decisive blow to the enemy. Nagi cleaves Tsumabiki in two, and Yu inflicts severe wounds on Fuki. Both, after reflecting on what happened when they witnessed the god that is Botan, accept their death and collapse to the ground in exhaustion. On the other hand, Fuki also disintegrates forever, accepting that it was a good fight. Finally defeating Tsumabiki, the characters briefly rest, as the difficult part has ended. Kagami uses their powers on Tsumabiki to revisit the past. The peace is not permanent, as others appear on the battlefield. Another great battle awaits our heroes. Shigure vows to take Botan away. Despite being injured, Tsubaki wants to keep fighting, longing to have those in front of her in her possession. Hyoma does the same to defeat his nemesis. Both heroes and villains advance to attack simultaneously. Hyoma tries to land a precise blow but ends up wounded. His enemy has no trouble defending and dodging attacks. At that moment, Hyoma realizes that his enemy is the one who murdered his brother and sister. With determination and a thirst for blood, he wants to defeat the one who now wears his brother's skin. Tenjitsu tries to further anger Hyoma by insulting his brother, and also explains that when he devoured his soul, he could also know his thoughts. To demoralize Hyoma, Tenjitsu tells him that those who led to his siblings' deaths were his grandfather and Hyoma himself, leading him to react violently. Tenjitsu brings back memories of his childhood when he fought against his elder brother. Seeing Hyoma distracted by this memory, Tenjitsu begins to attack him continuously. Meanwhile, the other villains try to abduct Botan, but Yu evades the attacks. Nagi fiercely attacks Shigure, while Tsubaki faces an enemy, hitting him in the face and rendering him unable to fight. The battle between Hyoma and Tenjitsu becomes increasingly difficult because constant memories of his brother, whom he never managed to defeat, keep surfacing. The young man tries to confront his enemy, who has now unleashed his true power. He attempts to stand up, but it's in vain. He's too wounded. While his enemy insults him to demoralize him, his allies give him enough reasons to keep fighting, and each expresses their positive viewpoint while simultaneously trying to confront the villains. Ultimately, it's Botan's cry that gets Hyoma back on his feet. The reasons for his struggle are clear: to vow to destroy the malevolent Tsukomogami, and also to defend Botan. This reflection reveals their true power. Combining his two weapons, Hyoma unleashes an incredible power, so potent that his allies must step away from the fight as a precaution. Releasing this immense power, he utters the technique called Kunado Gate Opening. He hurls it towards Tenjitsu, who tries to stop it, but it explodes in his face. Everything around is destroyed, including half of Tenjitsu's body, although he regenerates effortlessly. Fortunately, Taiju Katamori and the rest of the team join the battle, significantly easing the fight. Tenjitsu sees winning that battle as impossible, so he decides to escape, threatening to take Botan with him someday before vanishing along with his allies, using the umbrella for transportation. With no additional threats, Hyoma collapses. Botan rushes to check on the young man's health, but he explains that he's just tired and she shouldn't worry. Taiju Katamori commends the team for their hard work, while the others casually discuss how they'll return home. Haori keeps Zohei informed about the betrayal and the enemies who attempted to capture Botan. She also asks Zohei if he was aware that Tenjitsu wore Hyoma's brother's skin, to which Zohei confirms his knowledge, explaining his desire to keep his grandson away. After a long rest, Hyoma wakes up and notices Botan also in the room, waiting for him to awaken. After the young man compliments her, both feel embarrassed. Hyoma feels even more embarrassed upon realizing they weren't alone. Taiju and Tsubaki are also present. The elder explains that they were investigating the team of paper umbrellas. Before concluding the conversation, Taiju admires Hyoma's unwavering morale and invites him to continue facing the threat of the umbrellas together. Taiju invites him to the traditional gathering often celebrated after a great fight. At the gathering, the entire team is present. They acclaim Kushige, naming him the star, leaving the protagonist surprised since this character participated for only a few minutes. At one point, everyone present demonstrates loyalty towards Botan, leaving her speechless. Hyoma reflects on his vendetta against the paper umbrellas and realizes there was something bigger than his hatred for these enemies. He looks around and sees his friends safe and sound, fixing his gaze on Botan, his reason to protect. Kushige thanks Hyoma for defending his mistress, startling the young man upon discovering that Kushige can speak. This signifies good fortune for everyone for the new year. Botan's friends try to investigate what she was up to all that time, even speculating that she might be getting married. However, she can't reveal the truth, feeling embarrassed. As they leave the place, they ask Botan why she doesn't have a paper umbrella since it's raining. At the same time, Hyoma arrives to bring her an umbrella. As Kagami mentioned, she forgot it. This gesture further embarrasses Botan in front of her friends. Both walk in the rain, and Botan affectionately shares the umbrella with Hyoma, but instantly realizes that it's something couples do, feeling embarrassed again. They both witness a wedding, and Hyoma suggests that Botan would look very nice in a wedding dress, which makes her even more uncomfortable. The family, observing from atop a roof, sees them in this situation and encourages them to finally become a couple, teasing Hyoma for being so reserved. Soon the sun comes out, and it's Botan who takes the first step. She suggests to Hyoma that they approach the wedding holding hands to get a closer look. Both of them run hand in hand, laughing. The end! Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.